Back to the Founding Fathers. Today I'm going to read 3 new sections. I'm going to read the section Sign Here, We the People, and James Madison. And just like before, I would recommend that you do some form of graphic organizer, or you'd use the, we called it the spaghetti and meatball. You put the sign here, you put a line under it, and then you do 2 dots or 3 dots, and you write down 3 facts that you think were interesting in that section. When I talk about a graphic organizer, one of the traditional ones would look something like this. And you would put Founding Fathers in the middle. You'd put your topics, and then you put lines. And obviously you'd only have 3 for this, so that might be different. But that's one way to organize your thinking so that you can go back and look at it later. So let me see if I can find the right page. Oh, here we go. Sign here. So let's see. Some key principles we decided on at the beginning of the Constitutional Convention. The delegates agreed that voting should be by state, not by delegate. Also, they decided that the talks should be kept private while they were underway so that delegates could speak openly. A public announcement would be made once they had reached a final agreement. The Virginia Plan. On May 29th, 1787, which is today, May 29th, that's eerie. 4 days after the convention began, delegates began to discuss a draft constitution. It had been drafted mainly by James Madison, and because he represented Virginia, it came to be known as the Virginia Plan. Madison proposed a system of federal government that had 2 houses, or chambers. Each house would be made up of representatives elected by voters from 13 states. The number of representatives elected would be based on how many people lived in the state. The Virginia Plan was only a draft constitution, but it set the agenda for the debate yet to come. William Madison, author of the New Jersey Plan. The New Jersey Plan, Madison's Virginia Plan, was hotly debated because not everyone was in favor of it. Delegates from states with small populations felt that it was unfair to them, since they would end up with fewer representatives than the larger states and might be outvoted. William Madison, a delegate from New Jersey, proposed a different plan. Under the New Jersey Plan, there would be 1 House of Representatives, not 2, and each state would have just 1 vote. The New Jersey Plan was rejected. So here we go. Right, sign here. So we're looking at 2 different plans that are being thought about for our governance. George Washington standing by the desk as the Constitution is signed. Oops, sorry. Check it out. Here he is. And there he is. Okay, the Great Compromise. At the beginning of July, after weeks of discussion, a grand committee was appointed to break the deadlock. After 2 weeks, the committee delivered its report. It was proposed that in the upper house, the Senate, each state would have an equal vote, regardless of how many people lived in the state. However, in the lower house, the House of Representatives, each state should have 1 representative for every 40,000 inhabitants. The Great Compromise, as it was called, was finally accepted on July 16th, 1787. Let's see. The Great Compromise document brought together plans for the Senate and the House of Representatives, which is what we have today. The Constitution is signed. In late July, delegates began drafting the final version of the Constitution. The Virginia Plan was the starting point, taking into account the recommendations of the Great Compromise. Even while the drafting and redrafting were going on, delegates continued to debate the text of the emerging Constitution. The question of slavery was fiercely argued. Some states wanted it abolished, others did not. A compromise was reached that the slavery issue would be resolved at a future date. After all the disagreements had been settled, the Constitution of the United States of America was signed on September 17th, 1787. Of the 55 original delegates, 42 were present, and of those, 39 signed the historic document. 3 delegates refused to sign. They believed the Constitution was flawed. So we have key people in the painting. We already said that's George Washington there. Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania is number 2, and so he's right here. And then number 3 is James Madison, and he is here. And I know it's teeny beady. And number 4, Alexander Hamilton, hiding over here. So you can see that this picture has weight over time. Let's see what the next page brings us. We the people. Funny, I think there's a document in our country's archives that starts that way. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. So begins the Constitution of the United States, a landmark document not only for America, but for the entire Western world. What is the Constitution? The Constitution is the highest law in the United States. It sets out how the system of national government should work. Under the terms of the Constitution, the national government was divided into 3 branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. So we have 3 branches of government, and it's important to know that. Separation of power. It was important to separate the government's power among the 3 branches. It meant that no single branch had more power than the others. And each branch would watch over the others to make sure the system worked correctly. And then we have a federal government. Okay, and then up here is our seal, the Great Seal of the United States. It is used for documents issued by the U.S. government to show they are genuine. The Great Seal was first used in 1782, and you can see it's an eagle. And then down here, the original handwritten Constitution of the United States of America. So it was handwritten, boys and girls. Let's see. It appears to me then little short of a miracle, George Washington describing the Constitution. The greatest single effort of national deliberation that the world has ever seen, John Adams describing the Constitution. The legislative branch. The day-to-day running of the government, the making of laws, the raising of money, the power to declare war was allocated to the legislative branch called Congress. It would be made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Executive branch. At the head of the government, there was to be a leader. He was given the title of President. The president would be elected for a 4-year term and would be the commander-in-chief of the Army and the Navy. He could make treaties, appoint judges, and diplomats, and his signature was needed before a new law could be passed. The judicial branch. The Constitution created the Supreme Court to serve as the highest court in the country. Its job was to dispense justice. Spreading the word. On September 19th, 1787, 2 days after the Constitution was signed, the American people were given their first chance to read it. The Pennsylvania Packet and Daily Advertiser, printed in Philadelphia, became the first newspaper to print the full text of the Constitution. As more newspapers did the same, more people throughout the states were able to read the Constitution for themselves. It was also printed in pamphlets and in the German language for German speakers in America. Constitution at a glance. Number of words in 1787 document, 4,543, including the 39 signatures. Number of sheets, 4. Size of sheets, about 29 inches by 24 inches. Written on, parchment. Treated animal skin, probably sheepskin. Written with, iron gall ink, made from oak galls and iron sulfate. Reading time, takes about 30 minutes to read. Spelling mistakes, Pennsylvania for Pennsylvania. It's for its, choose, C-H-U-S-E, for choose, C-H-O-O-S-E, although choose was acceptable at the time, and words spelled in the British manner, defense for defense and labour for labor, where it is National Archives, Washington, D.C. So, you have this imagery here. It's printed for the first time. They have some information about spelling mistakes and other things here, which I think is kind of cool. And again, they didn't have a dictionary at the time, so people did use different spellings of common words. James Madison, father of the Constitution. Some years after the Constitution was ratified, which means agreed upon, James Madison became known as the father of the Constitution because of all he had done to make it happen. He protested, saying it was the work of many heads and many hands. Early life. James Madison was born in 1751 on his grandparents' tobacco plantation on Port Conway, Virginia. He grew up in Orange County, Virginia, where his parents were prosperous tobacco planters. Madison was a gifted scholar. In 1769, he enrolled at the College of New Jersey, now Princeton University, where he completed a 4-year course in 2 years. He studied history, languages, government, or political science, and studied law with great interest. Passion for politics. By 1774, Madison had focused on the biggest political issue at the time, independence from Great Britain, which he supported. In 1776, the year of the Declaration of Independence, Madison helped draft the Virginia Constitution. The colony declared its freedom from British rule and created the Virginia Assembly to govern its own affairs. The Virginia Constitution was important not only for Virginia, but for the future of the United States because it showed what was possible for the other colonies. It also shaped James Madison's personal future. James Madison, birthplace, Port Conway, Virginia. So here's James Madison, and then here's a picture of his birthplace. Man of ideas. Between May and September 1787, Madison addressed delegates many times at the Constitutional Convention held in Philadelphia. He spoke clearly and convincingly about his ideas for a national government. Madison believed the United States needed a strong central government in which power was divided into 3 branches so that none could be overruled by the others. Delegates agreed with Madison, and his ideas became part of the Constitution of the United States of America. His work did not end there, as the Constitution had to be ratified or approved by the states. To advocate ratification, Madison, with the help from supporters, won approval for the Constitution by writing a series of articles for the newspaper. 4th President. James Madison served as the 4th President of the United States from 1809 to 1817. In 1812, a group of politicians urged him to declare war on Great Britain because the British had seized American ships and sailors. Madison was reluctant to send the new nation to war, but he did. The War of 1812 ended in 1815, with neither side able to claim an outright victory. However, it brought the states closer together, and the U.S. emerged as a stronger nation. Every person seems to acknowledge his greatness. In the management of every great question, he evidently took the lead in the convention. William Pierce describing James Madison at the Constitutional Convention. Final years. Madison left office in 1817 and spent the rest of his life on his 5,000-acre tobacco plantation at Montpelier, Orange County, Virginia. He believed in modern methods of farming without the exploitation of slaves, worked to abolish slavery, and helped to resettle freed slaves in Liberia, West Africa. He died in 1836, aged 85. So he lived a nice long life. General Andrew Jackson at the Battle of New Orleans. So here we go. And that is it for my reading today. I hope you learned a little bit more about the Constitution and our founding fathers and some of the important aspects of our government. For example, we have a Senate and a House of Representatives, and we have 3 branches of government. Try and remember what those are and maybe put them in your notes so that you remember those pieces. Thank you. See you later, guys.